It was a crisp autumn day in New York City. Erwin sat nervously in a quaint cafe. He was waiting for Sarah, his girlfriend of 5 years. The air was thick with tension. Erwin knew something was off. Sarah had been distant lately. He hoped this meeting would clear things up.
I hope this will fix everything.
Sarah walked in, her face a mask of determination. Erwin's heart sank. He knew what was coming. She sat down and didn't even order coffee.
Erwin, we need to talk.
Those 4 words, the ones nobody wants to hear. Erwin braced himself for what was to come. The conversation that followed was brutal. Sarah laid it all out. She wasn't happy. She wanted different things. She was leaving him.
I can't believe this.
Erwin felt like he was underwater. Everything was muffled. He barely heard her say, "I'm sorry," as she walked out. Just like that, 5 years vanished into thin air. Erwin sat there, stunned. The bustling cafe faded into the background. He felt numb, empty, lost.
How could this happen? We had plans, dreams, a future together. Now it's all gone.
Erwin didn't know it yet, but this was just the beginning of his journey. The days following the breakup were a blur for Erwin. He struggled to focus at work. His performance suffered. Deadlines were missed. Projects fell through the cracks. It wasn't long before his boss called him into the office. Erwin knew what was coming.
I'm getting fired, aren't I?
He was let go. Just like that, another pillar of his life crumbled. Erwin's world was falling apart. He couldn't afford his apartment anymore. The eviction notice came as no surprise. He packed up his life into boxes. Each item a reminder of what he'd lost. The happy photos, the shared memories. It all felt like a cruel joke now.
How could things get any worse?
Depression set in like a heavy fog. Erwin could barely get out of bed. He crashed on friends' couches, but their patience wore thin. He felt like a burden, unwanted, unloved. The man who once had it all was now scraping by, living off the kindness of others. It was a humbling experience, one that would shape him in ways he couldn't yet imagine.
Where did it all go wrong? Could I have done something differently?
Nights were the hardest. Lying awake, Erwin replayed every moment. The what-ifs haunted him. He felt lost in a sea of regret and self-doubt. Little did he know, a lifeline was about to be thrown his way, one that would pull him out of the depths and into a whole new world. Erwin's situation went from bad to worse. His friend's goodwill had run out. He found himself on the streets. The harsh reality of homelessness hit him like a truck. He'd seen homeless people before, but he never imagined he'd be one of them. It was a humbling and terrifying experience.
I can't believe this is happening.
The first night on the streets was the hardest. Erwin huddled in a doorway. The cold seeped into his bones. He clutched his backpack, all that remained of his former life. Sleep eluded him. Every noise made him jump. He'd never felt so vulnerable, so alone. It was a far cry from the life he once knew.
How did I end up here?
Days blurred together. Erwin learned the harsh realities of street life, where to find food, how to stay warm, which areas were safe. He met others in similar situations. Their stories touched him deeply. He realized he wasn't alone in his struggles. It was a strange comfort in a world of discomfort.
Despite everything, I won't give up.
Despite the hardships, Erwin refused to give up. He applied for jobs whenever he could. He visited shelters and sought help. But it was an uphill battle. His appearance and lack of address worked against him. Just when he thought things couldn't get any worse, fate decided to throw him a curveball. One that would change everything. Section 4. An unexpected letter, a life-changing discovery. It was a typical day at the shelter. Erwin was in line for a meal when a volunteer called his name.
"There's a letter for you," she said.
Erwin was shocked. Who could be writing to him? He hadn't told anyone he was here. With trembling hands, he opened the envelope. The letter was from a law firm. Erwin's heart raced as he read. His biological father, a man he'd never known, had passed away. But that wasn't all. The man was wealthy, very wealthy, and he'd left everything to Erwin. It was like a plot from a movie. Erwin couldn't believe it.
Emotions flooded through Erwin. Shock, disbelief, joy, sadness. He'd always wondered about his birth parents. Now he had answers, but they came with a bittersweet realization. He'd never get to meet his father, never get to ask him all the questions that had haunted him for years.
The law firm arranged for Erwin to come to their office. They explained everything. DNA tests confirmed his identity. Erwin was now one of the wealthiest men in the city. It was overwhelming. From homeless to heir in the blink of an eye. Erwin's head spun. He didn't know it yet, but this was just the beginning of a new chapter in his life. Section 5. Embracing a new identity. From rags to riches. Erwin's life changed overnight. He moved into his father's penthouse. Designers replaced his tattered clothes with tailored suits. Financial advisors explained his vast wealth. It was surreal.
Erwin felt like an imposter in his own life, like he was watching someone else live out a fairy tale. But amidst the luxury, Erwin felt lost. Who was he now? The struggling artist, the homeless man, or this new wealthy heir?
He grappled with his identity. The experiences of the past year had changed him. He couldn't simply go back to his old life. Nor could he fully embrace this new one. Erwin sought therapy to process his emotions. It wasn't easy. He had to confront his past. The breakup, the job loss, the homelessness. But slowly, he began to heal.
He realized that all these experiences had shaped him, made him stronger, more empathetic, more aware of the struggles others face.
As Erwin came to terms with his new reality, he made a decision. He wouldn't let this wealth change who he was at his core. He'd use it to make a difference, to help others who were struggling like he once was. It was time to give back, to use his second chance to create positive change in the world. Section 6. Paying it forward. A heart of gold. Erwin's first order of business was to help those who'd helped him. He donated generously to the shelters that had given him refuge. He set up programs to help the homeless find jobs and housing.
Erwin remembered the kindness of strangers during his darkest days. Now he could be that kindness for others, but Erwin didn't stop there. He established a foundation to support struggling artists. He remembered his own dreams of making it in the art world, how those dreams had been crushed by financial realities. Now he could help others pursue their passions without fear of ending up on the streets.
Erwin's experiences had taught him valuable lessons about resilience, about empathy, about the importance of community. He shared these lessons through motivational speaking. His story inspired others. It showed that no matter how dark things seem, there's always hope. That sometimes rock bottom is just the foundation for something greater.
As Erwin looked back on his journey, he felt grateful. Not just for the wealth he'd inherited, but for the experiences that had shaped him. The breakup that had seemed like the end of the world had been just the beginning. It had set him on a path that led to self-discovery, to purpose, to a life filled with meaning and the ability to make a difference.
Erwin had gone from heartbreak to air, but more importantly, he'd become a beacon of hope for others.